Hi, I'm George Caligueros, CEO of Asion Labs, and you're watching Taking Stock.
Let's go.
2 minutes to go here into the closing bell on this very special Friday afternoon edition of Taking Stock. At this hour, not quite at session lows, Peter Tuchman, but not very far off. We had a really interesting rally right after the open, briefly turned positive in the Dow. That also didn't last long. What did you see on this Friday today?
You know what, it's sort of peculiar. Look, we have option expiration. We've had a week where we've seen, a lot of choppy market at best. I think the opening rally was over the fact that overnight, whatever it was that got people a little bit out of whack, we came in, it was down 1% pre-market. Now normally if there's not enough volume in the morning, right, to take it down that level, you're going to see a bit of a pop, especially on option expiration. That's where you see the biggest volume in option exits in the opening auction. The rest of the day was market just sort of trying to position itself into a weekend. The week is sort of still, we're in the middle of that stage where we're waiting for the next tranche of earnings.
Oh yeah.
And so, nobody really knows what to do. There's nothing negative going on here. These are constructive days. So I have nothing to worry about. Yeah, it is a little bit on the red side, but it's okay.
Corporate earnings, the lifeblood of the market. We get a few Mag 7 names next week. We get Tesla, we get Alphabet, the newest addition to the Dow.
Yeah.
Some potentially some big market movers coming up next week.
100%. Look, the market is strong, even in red territory.
Absolutely. All right, Peter Tuchman, speaking of strong, thank you for being here.
Love
Knicks in 5.
Knicks in 5.
Time
Let's
now
go.
for the closing bell. More Taking Stock coming up after this. There you have it. The trading day is over. The trading week is over. By the way, do you mind if I got a shot? We're live on the show. Hope you don't mind. I got to shout this cowboy hat, man.
Thanks,
you
man.
rock the hell out
Stetson's
of that.
the way to go. This is actually my grandfather's from the 1960s, so it'll last a long time if you take good care of them.
All right, right on. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you
No
all
problem.
for being here. How about one more time of your visit? All right. Now I got to put my microphone back on. Can I hand you that for a second? Thank you very much. Your final tail of the tape on this Friday, July 17th. The S&P 500 down a full percent. Thank you, Skylar. The Dow down, let's call it 0.8. The New York Stock Exchange Composite Index in negative territory, 0.6. And the small caps, the Russell 2000 in the red, 0.4%. Energy really the only sector in the S&P 500 in positive territory. A fair bit of selling. Now let's get the man's take himself, the great Caleb Silver, editor-in-chief at Investopedia, for what he saw in today's tape and much more. My man, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, yabba dabba do. Stop the machines. Selling was getting pretty intense in the late afternoon.
Yeah, there's some moments. People always say, JD, can you start the show a little bit early? Like we don't want this to play out. We're going to talk much more about the Investopedia recent survey. That we always love learning about that data. But more broadly, what do you make of the markets? We got through big bank earnings. We got some big names still ahead. Cooler than expected inflation prints this week. There was a lot for investors to digest.
Yeah, it was like a month's worth of news in a week, and that's kind of the way it's been lately. And we've seen a lot of pressure in the stock market, and every little thing now seems to matter. We had news of a new LLM coming out of China that's more powerful. We're going to get cycles and cycles of this, plus doubts about semiconductor pricing, the sustainability of it. All those little things are going to keep creeping into the market and test investors' resilience. Investors have been resilient, but we've seen the rotation happening. The question is the rotation into healthcare, into financials, into energy strong enough to keep the market on the bull run that it's been on?
Investopedia is a remarkable resource for people to go to learn, and you also ask readers of Investopedia how they're feeling under particular economic situations. Talk to me first and foremost, your top line takeaways from the most recent survey, any surprises about what they're telling you and how they are thinking about these markets?
Yeah, hanging in there. We just wrapped up our quarterly survey of our readers, and they're hanging in there, still cautiously optimistic, but worried about the same old things, except the worries seem to be creeping a little bit higher. That's inflation, that's the war in Iran, no ceasefire there, no word on when that might happen, and when we might get a regular look at what oil prices could look like into the future here. That's going on in people's minds, but also worries about overvaluation still in AI stocks, which a lot of individual investors own. Our portfolios look a lot like the top of the NASDAQ 100 or the S&P 500. So when you see these sell-offs and these shake-offs in some of these stocks, it rattles investors. That said, not a ton of selling out, just a little bit of rotation in the big names.
So I was going to ask, what did they rotate into? Because we track here, you look at the 11 sectors, you'll get outperformance on a day like today from energy. You have other days of the week, utilities, real estate, healthcare becomes top of mind. Are you seeing Investopedia readers say, hey, we're more interested in some of those parts of the markets, or they're just kind of waiting on the big splashy AI names?
No, energy's made a comeback with some of our readers, and they leaned a little bit more into that. They leaned a little bit more into healthcare. I saw some banks on the top list of people's top investments for the first time in a long time. I think some of that is happening, but at the same time, they are selling things like SanDisk, like Apple, which just hit a 52-week high. Sometimes our timing is not so good. Tesla, NVIDIA, and American Airlines on the buy side, though. SpaceX, some nibbling there. Microsoft, Intel, and SK Hynix when it listed the ADRs last week.
What are your readers telling you that they would do if they could invest? What is it, an extra $10,000?
An extra 10 grand, the ultimate discretionary
what did you find
investment
there?
question. ETFs topping the list, and we saw a lot more people saying, I'm not investing more, but the money I am investing, leaning more into ETFs. They're tired of chasing single stocks because single stocks have had a ton of beta, and that's really been tough on investors' portfolios when all of a sudden one of your top holdings drops 20%.
When we talk ETFs, by the way, we're talking like XLK and XLRE, those names. Are people interested in the 2X leveraged ETF derivative plays? Because they're out there, and I know they're interested.
Yeah, leverage is kind of on people's mind
Sure.
in both directions here, inverse and leverage ETFs, but also they're looking at the Qs, and they're looking at SPYs, and they're looking at the new derivatives that have these lower expense ratios. These Trump accounts have woken a lot of people up to ETFs, and they're learning for the first time how they actually work and how they can help compound into broader investment gains over time.
Caleb, that reminds me, I had not planned to ask you this. Is there anything yet with regards to the midterm elections that people are tuning into Investopedia to as they try to become smarter investors, but also better understand the intersection of Capitol Hill, politics as usual down in DC, as well as what's going on here on Wall Street?
Yeah, well, they're smart enough to know that gridlock is probably good for the stock market right now, so they're asking questions about that. They're asking questions about returns under different presidents all the time, wondering, you know, is it a presidential thing? The reality is it's not a presidential thing. Stay invested. They're also curious about all of these investments the government has made into public companies and what that looks like over time. There's going to be a lot more people, JD, invested in the stock market over the next 5 to 10 years. That's a different dynamic than we've experienced.
On Sunday, 3 o'clock, MetLife Stadium, Argentina, Spain. You might have heard of it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm rooting for the goalies. Goalies stick together, so I got Unai Simon there with Spain. I think he's superior. Both goalies are incredible. I'm hoping for a ton of saves, a shootout, and even more saves. Rooting for the goalkeepers, but I'll take Spain.
I hope they all have fun. That's what I'm most rooting
I hope
for.
everybody has a good time.
It's going to be a great match regardless. Caleb Silver, thank you for being here, my man. As always, Robbie will grab your mic, and you and I will talk again soon.
Thank you.
All right, speaking of the World Cup, more than $4.2 billion in total trade volume on the World Cup winner event contract. Thank you all. How are we doing? Up on Polymarket, Spain was the favorite all the way back on June 11th when the World Cup first started. They are still the favorite, 59% odds to win on Sunday. Argentina, defending champs, odds placed at 41% after another late victory against England. Actually, I'm going to grab this man, Fernando Munoz. Happy birthday this weekend,
Thank
dude.
you, brother.
All the
Thank
best
you.
for you. Happy birthday for this guy. How can we not? I hope it's a good one. He does look pretty. Yeah, no, he does. All right, some sports books have reported more money wagered on the World Cup than March Madness and the Super Bowl. The final, as Caleb and I were just saying, will be held 3 p.m. at MetLife Stadium. Yes, really, MetLife Stadium. I hope the wildfire smoke is cleared by then. Bobby, we'll take a look here at Travelers Insurance. It was the big dog in the Dow today, up more than 9%, reaching an all-time high. Reported a huge beat in second quarter earnings this morning. Travelers, the fourth strongest name in the Dow year to date. It trails only Caterpillar, Cisco, and UNH. Up more than 9% today, up 26% so far here in 2026. Earlier this week, FinTech TV's lead anchor, Remy Blair, sat down with Assembly Global's Tyler Goldberg. They discussed how political uncertainty is impacting the markets ahead of the midterm elections. Take a look.
Well, joining us live to weigh in is Tyler Goldberg, Director of Political Strategy at Assembly Global. Tyler, great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Remy, always a pleasure to be here.
Well, it has been quite the year, and we are counting down to November. So tell me about the media strategies that actually cut through the noise.
It's really interesting because we're leaving the primary phase of the election. As you mentioned, there were some recent primaries, obviously making news. We're heading into the general election with still billions and billions of dollars to be spent. We've actually increased our projections over the past few months based on the just onslaught of spending. We're probably going to see north of $11.5 billion this year. which would make it the most expensive election cycle on record, including presidential years.
And as you mentioned, that is quite the staggering sum here. And right now, you and I were streaming online as well as on television. So when it comes to the different mediums out there that are working and what's not?
So you're seeing a lot more money go into streaming than in past election cycles. That's, makes sense, right? Follows the trend of general market advertising. Where you're still seeing strength in political advertising versus other fields is in broadcast and linear TV. It'll still make up over half of all political spending will still be on linear TV. And that's what really sort of sets political advertising apart from, your regular commercial advertising.
Yeah, and I know that you're entrenched in all these data points and you're keeping an eye on what's successful and what's not. So when it comes to the breakdown in terms of demographics, tell us what's really happening below the surface.
I mean, we are in I would call it a typical, which is an interesting word to throw around the American political scene these days, but I would say it's a typical midterm year where the incumbent party, in this case the Republicans, are really on the back foot and defending a lot of seats in November. You're seeing this across the board in polling, with independent voters starting to swing more towards Democrats. That does not mean that this is going to be an absolute landslide for Democrats. There's still 111 days and billions of dollars to be spent before that can be determined. But what you're seeing is Republicans having to defend the policies of the past couple of years. We're getting into earnings season, right? And one thing that we can agree investors and the markets hate is confusion and uncertainty. There has been a lot of confusion and uncertainty emanating from the White House just in the past couple of years. And I think that's really having an effect on the markets as well as the voters.
Yeah, and absolutely 2026 has been the year of volatility as well as uncertainty. And as you mentioned, earnings season has kicked off and we are here on Wall Street. So let's talk about spending when it comes to these ad campaigns. Does spending guarantee a win now?
Absolutely not. I mean, you will see there are some cases. Tom Steyer is a prime example. In California, ran for governor, spent well over $100 million. I think it was more like 120. Did not make it into the next round. So it doesn't guarantee a win. However, in these big marquee races, money is an absolute essential. You have to have it to be competitive.
And finally, before I let you go, looking closer at the data, what are voters and consumers actually telling you right now?
It's all about affordability, and that is sort of infecting every other issue. I mean, we look at the war in Iran. We're 5 months into a war that was allegedly over on March 9th. We are in a place where voters are more concerned about their policies at home and how it affects them rather than the uncertainty with sort of geopolitics and what's going on around the world. And I think that's something you're going to see straight up through the election.
And very quickly, we have less than 60 seconds here. So give us an idea of which specific swing regions as well as districts are actually going to decide the majority here.
It's interesting. There will obviously be important races in Georgia, Michigan, Maine has been in the news a lot recently for obvious reasons. I'm actually looking at Iowa and Alaska as my two potential sort of surprise seats. Democrats are really making a strong play in both of those states. And then the fundraising numbers for James Talerico in Texas have been eye-watering. And so I think those three states are certainly Democrats can be successful without them, but if they have them, they will be in really good shape come November 3rd.
Well, as we head into the second half of this year, as well as the final quarter of the year, I'm sure we will have you back on. So thank you so much for joining us today,
Thanks
Heller.
for having me.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show. You are watching this Friday afternoon edition of Taking Stock live from the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And our next guest joins us now. This is Dr. Reid Waldman, CEO and board member of Veradermics. Welcome to the show. Nice to see you here today.
Thanks for having me.
So I understand that you and your team have discovered a potential breakthrough for pattern hair loss treatment, but not necessarily for men. What is the latest and what should people know?
This has been a very exciting week at Veradermics. This week we announced the first ever positive phase 2 data for an oral treatment for pattern hair loss in females. And I think A lot of people don't realize this, but 30 million women, that's half of all women in their lifetime, will develop pattern hair loss, and right now there are no FDA-approved prescription treatments, no FDA-approved oral treatments.
So how does this actually work for people hearing of this, want to know what it really looks like in practice? Is it one pill? Is it dose? What are the basics here that people should understand?
Yeah, so this is a pill. Specifically, it's a minoxidil extended release tablet, and it gives the hair consistent exposure of minoxidil throughout the day to promote hair growth while blunting spikes in the minoxidil that can cause cardiac effects. And at this point in time, we've now shown initial phase 2-3 data in males, phase 2 data in females, supporting a profile that we can get fast hair growth as early as 2 months after taking the tablet, consistent hair growth in up to close to 90% of users while having a generally tolerated experience.
Is it true that there's been, relatively speaking, very little innovation in the world of pattern hair loss in the last 3 decades? And if so, why so?
Yeah, so there's never actually been an FDA-approved prescription treatment, FDA-approved oral treatment for female pattern hair loss. And in the last 30 years, we've had one FDA-approved oral treatment for males, and that was back in 1997. So really a lack of innovation. We've now put out the first positive clinical data for females for an oral pill, and the first positive data in males for a non-hormonal or a pill that doesn't impact the hormones.
I would imagine you see this as a pretty large market opportunity. How are you thinking about reaching people who could be candidates for this type of treatment and helping kind of spread the word and encourage them to learn more?
Yeah, so hair loss is one of the biggest opportunities. 80 million people in the US suffer from pattern hair loss. There are 15 million people that are actively seeking treatment at any given time. So that makes this one of the largest pharmaceutical markets, period. And again, no approved prescription treatments in 30 years for males, never for females. So we see that if we can build a product that is able to actually deliver the types of results patients are looking for, that we'll be able to drive them into the clinics to seek it.
Is there something that the world of hair loss can learn from how undeniably successful, I think, the world of marketing has been for the Ozempics and the GLP-1s of the world? Because I remember several years ago, the first inklings of that came up, and now you don't really go very far over the course of your day without hearing something about the impact of GLP-1s.
Well, I think it's all about the social proof, and we think it's very similar in hair, meaning that I think all of us have a friend or a family member at this point that's taken a GLP-1, we've seen them lose weight, and it gives us conviction that those drugs work, and it kind of creates a social dialogue. Similarly, we believe in hair, that if you have a friend or a family member who regrows their hair, you're going to ask them what their secret was, and we're hoping that secret is us.
How about some milestones for us to keep our eyes on, either for the second half of 2026 or even into next year, 27?
So we have 2 upcoming major clinical study readouts. In the second half of this year, we will have our second phase 3 study for male pattern hair loss. And in the first half of next year, we'll have our first and only phase 2-3 study for female pattern hair loss. And that study will be the first ever phase 2-3 study for an oral treatment for female pattern hair loss.
And I gotta say, game recognized game. You're a man with a good head of hair.
We love it.
Man,
Thank you for
being
having me.
here. It's great to see you. Dr. Reed Waldman, CEO and board member of Veradermics. Come back anytime. Nice to see you. Don't go away. A lot more Taking Stock coming up live from the trading floor of the big board right after this. Welcome back to the show. Joining me now down here on the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange, Jason Bressler. He is Chief Technology Officer at United Wholesale Mortgage. He and his team just got through ringing the closing bell. What was that experience like? And thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was absolutely fantastic, surreal, almost. I mean, once in a lifetime opportunity.
And I know there's a special occasion industry-wide you and your colleagues are celebrating. What do you want our viewers to most know about? What makes today so special?
Today, we are celebrating National Mortgage Brokers Day. And so for us at United Wholesale Mortgage, that's where we invest. The wholesale channel and brokers are really what we're all about.
What makes the broker channel unique, and what are some of the key fundamentals about that lane you would want more people to be aware of?
Well, the broker channel is all about choice and making sure that the American consumer gets the best product, saves the most amount of money, and that only happens through independent mortgage brokers. And so that's really what we're here to celebrate and make sure that everybody knows about.
Jason, I would not be doing my job as a journalist in 2026 without asking something about artificial intelligence. What does AI adoption look like across the mortgage industry?
I think across the industry, it's a little bit slow, but across the wholesale channel, it is really, really big and really accelerated. We build everything ourselves at UWM. I've got 2,000 IT team members that work alongside me. We build all of our products, which includes artificial intelligence. And so we infuse it into all of our products that all of our brokers use. And so we are definitely cutting edge, but probably leaning on bleeding edge as it relates to AI in the mortgage industry.
And what is a lot of the feedback that I wonder that your brokers and your clients are giving you? And what does it look like for you and your team to then go kind of implement a lot of that feedback, especially in terms of new AI and emerging technologies?
Yeah, so the nicest thing about our independent mortgage brokers is they're our partners. And so we have a phenomenal feedback loop. They almost tell us what they want, what they need, and I just get the privilege of executing off of that. And so their AI and their AI ideas that we've put into place has been overwhelmingly positive and will just continue to get better.
In what ways would you say the mortgage industry has really evolved, even over the course of just the last few years? And do you have an outlook for near-term changes? What might this conversation look like even 3 to 5 years from today, Jason?
I think really what we're going to see is the loan officers and the companies that truly embrace AI and that use it and not just lean into it, but really believe in it, they will leave everybody else behind that doesn't. I say this all the time, AI will not replace anybody in the mortgage industry, but the people that use it will.
What is one reality of the overall mortgage industry that you wish more Americans fundamentally understood?
That independent mortgage brokers are by far the best way to get a mortgage. You get a better product, you get better rates, you save more money, and you get better people, basically, overall. So I would absolutely want everybody to know that.
Jason Bressler is the CTO at United Wholesale Mortgage. He and his team bringing about a close to the trade here on Wall Street today. Really grateful for your time. Congratulations on doing the bell.
Thank you.
And thanks for chatting with me today.
Thanks, JD. I really appreciate it.
All the best for a great weekend. Don't go away. A lot more Taking Stock coming up live from the trading floor right after this. Time now for a few Friday headlines in the world of fintech, crypto, and artificial intelligence as you head into your weekend. First up at this hour, Solana and Ethereum both down. Bitcoin up fractionally, right around to 64,000. Next up, Morgan Stanley launching spot Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana trading on E-Trade. It's a partnership with Zero Hash, allowing clients to buy, sell, and hold crypto alongside traditional investments. Finally, Netflix saying about 300 titles use generative AI during production this year. They insist the technology is intended to support, not replace, human filmmakers. That's a fascinating story. And now Money 2020's very own Scarlett Sieber is back with Hindsight 2020. That's where she breaks down key dates in financial history. Take a look.
I'm Scarlett Sieber with Money 2020, and this is Hindsight 2020. Let's rewind back to July 18th, 1968. Intel is founded. At the time, it's one of many semiconductor companies emerging in a fast-moving technical space. But in hindsight, this marks something far more important. This is the beginning of compute being a strategic resource. For decades, finance revolved around capital. Who had it, how it moved, and what it cost. Now the systems have digitized. A second layer emerged. Who controls the ability to process, store, and scale information? Intel didn't build banks. It built the infrastructure banks would eventually run on. And that shift compounds over time. Once financial systems depend on computation, speed becomes competitive advantage, scale becomes exponential, dependency becomes invisible. Let's fast forward to today. Cloud providers, AI models, chip supply chains, and you see the same dynamic playing out again and again. Software may feel dominant, but hardware determines what's possible, and that is really important. July 1968 reminds us of something that's very easy to forget. Finance doesn't just run on money, it runs on systems that money depend on, and control over those systems is one of the most durable advantages in the entire economy. So with that, that is your Hindsight 2020, because the deepest layers of power are usually the least visible. With that, back over to you.
And before we wrap up this Friday edition of Taking Stock live from the New York Stock Exchange, we'll get you quickly caught up on what to expect next week on Wall Street. Believe it or not, we're actually kind of light on the economic data front, but we will have earnings from some big names, including a few in the Mag 7, Alphabet and Tesla. We'll also hear from several of the major airlines and several Dow components next week as well. That list includes 3M, Honeywell, and American Express. Your final tail of the tape on this Friday, July 17th. I don't have it in front of me. Sorry, Bob. Got to turn around. The S&P 500 down a full percent. The Dow is down 0.8. The small caps are in the red, 0.4. Oil jumping 3% on the day, now up almost 20% off their lows from July 2nd. Energy, the only sector in the S&P 500 in positive territory, with plenty of selling pressure in sectors like telecom, consumer discretionary, and financials. The S&P 500, meanwhile, if you're into the technicals, hitting the 50-day moving average today for the first time since June 29th. Over in the Dow, Travelers, Cisco, and Chevron were all of the outperformers. Coca-Cola, IBM, and Alphabet, your Dow laggards. All 7 Mag 7 stocks were in the red. Meta was the hardest hit. That'll do it for today's edition of Taking Stock on this Friday afternoon, live from the trading floor of the one and only New York Stock Exchange. Thank you for watching today's show and every show this week. Enjoy the World Cup final on Sunday. We'll see you again on Monday.